Likkutei Torah Masei, page 176. Okay, we're in the first column, 8 lines from the end of the page, the first column. Okay, now the Rebbe is explaining to understand why Masei is plural. When they went out of Egypt, there was only one. And he said we need to understand the Membes Masois. As he explained, the level of Midbar represents Klippa. The whole Membes Masois for the Jews to refine all the levels of Klippa. And he's explaining that's like the Goyim are Yonik. Klippa is Yonik from the level of Cyrus, which is very extremely limited and doesn't hurt when you cut or shear the wool and so on. So he says, but a person, a Yid, because he's born B'tzalmeinu Kid Museinu, because he's created in the image of Hashem, therefore he can elevate all these levels of evil. So he says, Inay, Inyan Tzalmeinu Kid Museinu, this Inyan of Tzalmeinu, our form, and in the image of Hashem, in the form of Hashem, Hubachinis Yichudi, love, Yichudi Tata. Is a higher level of unity and the lower level of unity. The Museinu is the Yichud Tata. In our form is the lower level of Yichud. Shubachinas, the Mus Umare, it only is like a vision. Domed, the Mus comes from the word Domed, it's similar, I think it's a vision of it. V'nir Lanu added, what's Yichud Tata? The V'nir Lanu added to Shemayim Chol Abruim Bechinas Yesh V'Davar. What is the inyan of the Museinu? It's a vision. What's the vision? It seems to us that the world looks like it's real. There's actually something separated from Hashem. But reality is the world is only Elokus. There's no Hashem doesn't change. And the same way you existed before the world was created, Hashem, you exist after the world was created, meaning nothing changes in Hashem. And everything compared to Hashem is nothing. But it appears, in other words, it's an appearing, a vision, that looks like the world is real. About the Musakisi, the Mus Kamara. So the Museinu is the lower Yichud Tata. What is the definition of Yichud Tata? Yichud Tata means the world exists, but it's bottled to Hashem. I have my own will, but I give up my will for your will. But Sameinu, he says it's a higher level. Ubachin is Yichud Ilah, is a higher level of a Deibishter. The way that a world doesn't exist. From that level of Elokus, the only thing that exists, it's not a world that's bottled to Hashem. The only thing that exists is only Hashem. That the person sees and realizes the same way Hashem was before the world, that only Hashem existed. The same way, now there's no difference. And look what he says in Vinay, second column. So the pearl, Hashem created a person, B'tzalmeinu Kid Museinu. Meaning, Hashem created the person with both concepts. Yichud Tata and Yichud Ilah. Tzalmeinu is Yichud Ilah, Kid Museinu is Yichud Tata. And he says, why did Hashem have to create us in a way that we think world exists? Why didn't he create to reveal the truth? That's it. And only Hashem exists. He says, because you can't have a king without a nation. Like we learned many times, the definition of a nation is you can't be a king over your own children because they're an extension of you. You can only be on foreigners that subjugate themselves as subjects to the king. So Hashem wanted to be a king. In order to be a king, he can't have extensions of himself because that's himself. So he had to create a world that seems to be a separate entity, and this world subjugates itself to Hashem. And therefore the person, the Yid, can get from both levels, which is Seviv Kol Almin, Malu Kol Almin. Seviv is Yichud Ilah, Malu is Yichud Tata. Therefore the 42 journeys in the Midbar was Latzeis B'chinas Mitzrayim, to leave the level of Mitzrayim, which is Meitzed Ugvul, limitation and boundaries, which is the definition of Klipa, and to transform from darkness to light, Kol Hazayim Mides Upatesehem, and all the Mides and their details. In other words, the number 42 is the 7 Mides times 6. In Anu B'Chayach, which was written by Rabbi Nechuni ben Akana, in Anu B'Chayach, there's 42 words. Then you have at the end, the Rosh Tevis. So then there's another 7, so that makes it 49, like we do by Sfira Sa'imer. But the Mem-Beis Masois, why were there 42? Because why not 7 times 7? I don't know. But here it's 7 times 6, that you transform the 7 Midas of evil, of Midbar, into Kedusha. Liyas L'cha Hashem Agdula, that it should be the level of L'cha Hashem Agdula, which is the level L'cha Dafka. To you, Dafka meaning the level of Bittul, L'cha Hashem Mamlocha, that even the level of Malchus, which is what created the world, is also L'cha. It's also your Bittul. Shebchenas HaMalchus. Shudvar Hashem, which is the word of Hashem, Yeh Bezgalus, that's sort of my Matos, that it should be a revelation of Elokus and not in a way of Neloma, of silence. Okay, so again, what's the purpose of the Mem-Beis Masois? A Jew to leave all the limitations and boundaries and to transform the Midbar to Eretz Yisrael. What?
Is it that the elevating is 7?
No, he says now, Lefi Shekol Mida Klula Mishisha, every meat is composed of 6. Lochein, Masois and B'Mispa Mem-Beis of the Shem Anu B'Chayach. Sheyesh B'Zayim Psukim, okay, that has 7 Psukim. Uv'chol Pasik Shisha Tevis. V'Hashem Anal U'B'chinas Aliyah Mimato L'Mayla. Okay, so he says like this, the 42 journeys is the 7 Midas, each one composed of 6. I guess the number is because the Midah itself doesn't need to be included, because like Chesed of Chesed doesn't need to be included, because that's Chesed and Gvura, whatever.
Or Malchus, you don't
No, yeah, well, Malchus of each sphere, each one of the 7 spheres is one has Malchus. Now, so therefore he said like this, how do we have the koyach to do the 42 masois of transformation? He said that was Ayidei Meisha v'Aaron Dafka, through Meisha and Aaron. Ki Meisha b'chinas Yichudei Ilah, because Meisha is the level of Yichudei Ilah, right? By Meisha Rabbeinu, Chobeisi Nemenhu, Isha Lekim, complete bittul. Lachein Nikra Meisha, therefore he was called Meisha, Min Amayim Ishisihu. Okay? So it's an interesting thing. This is a famous question when Mepharshim at Daskim Balatasis asks, who gave him the name Moshe? Bari's daughter. Bisya, Basi, whichever way you pronounce it, yeah? Locheira, she didn't speak Hebrew. So how did she call Moshe ki min amayim mishisiu? That's Lashon Kodesh. Okay? So Daskim Balatasis says in Shmois over there, he says she called him an Egyptian name, which in Hebrew means Moshe. But here the Alter Rebbe is saying no. Why was he called Moshe? L'chaya hayatzarich l'kreisi Masei b'loshen ovad. He's not asking about the Hebrew. Min amayim mishisiyu means I drew him past tense out of the water. So he should have been called Moshe past tense. Moshe is present tense. If she called him the name Moshe, let's say she called him Hebrew. Some of Mepharshim answer could she knew Hebrew from the Jews. So if she called him Moshe, which is present tense, why didn't she call Min Amayim Mishisihu? She should have called him Moshe. Uma Moshe Lashon Oda. So he says, the name is Ayichud De'ilah. Shetamid Nimshach V'Gad La'arav Amshach M'chinas Ein Sof. Baruch, meaning, he is constantly being drawn from the water. That means he is constantly revealing the level of Yam, of the hidden worlds, of Seviv Kol Alma. Lies Mamalukov said the Dolly Dolalanu, V'ara Nal Ein Ala Ketipa Mayim Yikanuis. And this revelation of Hashem is only like a drop of water in the whole ocean system. That everything is considered like nothing compared to Elokus. It gives another aspect. Tipa, a drop of water, is round. When you can take a drop of water with a drop and put it down on the paper, it's round. Shiagula Kumeke. Why? Because the tipa is from the ocean, which is basically makif level. Because it's coming from Alma Discasia. It's coming from the hidden world, which is basically not revealed. In fact, last day by the class we were learning that where do the Yidden get the koyach to go through the Membeis Masois? This is not this one, it's a different Maimer of the Alter Rebbe, because it says, Vayichtev Meisha es meitzoeihem lemaseihem, ve'ele maseihem lemeitzoeihem. Okay? So it says, L'cheira, Meisha Bein starts, Motzoeihem lemaseihem, and then he says, ve'ele maseihem lemotzoeihem. He reverses the order. So we learned, the Rebbe explains in the Sikha, and what's my Mar Mosul. The Rebbe has a whole man, the Ve'ichtev Meisha, Eile Masei B'nei Yisrael. But the bottom line of it is that Moshe Rabbeinu was Mamshech, Motzoeihem, the source of the neshama, the origin of the neshama, into Maseim, into the journeys of life, for the Jew to be able to overcome the Nacha Sada V'Akrov, and through that, through Eile Maseihem, then you go back, Limit So'eim, you go back to the source where the neshama comes from, plus. So, how could Moshe Rabbeinu do this? Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu gives the koyach. He says, why could Moshe Rabbeinu do it? Because he comes from an Amayim Shisiel. Moshe Rabbeinu's level is to reveal Alma Discasia. He was drawn from the water. That means he revealed the level of Mayim, of Alma Discasia. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu has the ability, just like it says, how is Moshe Rabbeinu kisikna eved ivri? How can Moshe Rabbeinu bring das into Zer Behema? Right? So you learn, because Moshe Rabbeinu comes from a level which is super great.
And all the Moshe generations.
Every Moshe generation is the same. The difference is, though, so why are there different bodies? It should be one long Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem could have made Moshe Rabbeinu, the same physical Moshe Rabbeinu is still alive today. Because every generation has its own personal needs, like we learned in the Atat Tetzava. In Mordechai's generation, let's say the Nefesh, in that different generation, whatever it is, every generation demands a different Aveda. Like Moshe Rabbeinu was the Rebbe of the Jews in the Midbar. Moshe Rabbeinu could not be the Rebbe of the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, Yeshua had to become the next leader. But he was the neshama, Moshe Rabbeinu. But it had to be in a body called Yeshua, because the needs of the Jews in Eretz Yisrael were different than the needs of the Jews in the Midbar. And Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't be mamshech. He said, Me'ayin li basa. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't be the leader of the Eden in Mitzrayim, in Eretz Yisrael, because that wasn't his Aveda.
And then Moshe Rabbeinu is constantly, every second, drawn from water.
Mm-hmm. He's constantly revealing it. And that's what they said. It's interesting. This Yisro's daughters, You know what the story of Moshe Rabbeinu went to the well to find the shidduch, and then the daughters of Yisro came and the shepherds threw them away, and Moshe Rabbeinu saved them. And then Yisro's daughter said to Yisro, "V'gam dolei dolalanu." He drew water for us. Not only did he get rid of the anti-Semites, the guys that were stopping them, right? But gam dolei dolalanu. He also drew water for us. What's the double expression dolei dola? Because the Moshe's Aveda was in the two levels. Likkutei ilah. By the way, it's interesting. Likkutei shebeparsha Shema Yisrael, sheyesh begam ken shis teven. The pasuk Shema Yisrael, Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is 6 words. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Leilam Void, also 6 words. But the Alter Rebbe, on top of Shayich V'Amunah, says Lahavim Asher Kased B'Zayar. And the top, even before Shayich V'Amunah actually begins, the 2 lines in small print. He says to understand the whole Shayich V'Amunah is to explain what it says in the Zayar, that Shema Yisrael is Yichudei Ilah and Baruch Shem is Yichudei Tatah. So he says it also has 6 words. Shaydei is bein is Yichudei Anah. Ya'ale v'yagil b'chin v'havda b'chol v'alcha b'shnei yitzrecha, to transform again the 6 spheres, the 7's composed of 6. V'savcha kol amidas l'Hashem levado, and then v'yohavta Hashem Elokecha. Ava loshin ava, which is a level of desire, like the Maggid said. V'yohavta doesn't only mean you should love. Ava comes from the word ava, which means desire. You should desire Hashem. Okay? So he says like this. What's the avoid of the members Masei? To transform the level of Klippa to Kedusha. Okay? That is accomplished through Moshe Rabbeinu, who comes in Amayim Mishisihu, who's mamshich that level of Kedusha to the Yidden, and therefore they have the koyach to overcome this level of midbar. He says in Beis, V'hinei, me, the Sava v'chesed, in the attribute of Ava and Chesed, Nechol gam ke midas gvura v'yira. Okay, like we know, Chesed has it, Chesed shebachesed, Gvura shebachesed. Okay. Now, Ava, Chesed is Ava, and Yira is Gvura, or Gvura is rather Yira, which means Yira is Chet. Sheyori lenafshi, the person's afraid of his soul, not to separate himself from Hashem's oneness, through any sin or aveda, even a rabbinic sin that's not a major sin. But not only does Chesed have Gvura, but it also has the level of Rachamim. Shaydei is bein in a sanal. By meditating what he said before about the word Kedusha and Einoid Milvadi and all that, you also awaken the level of mercy. I'll need to sell, of course, on the godly soul that gives life to him. The way this godly soul came from such a high place to such a low place. So he says like this. What's the Aved of the Jew? The Aved of the Jew is to elevate the midas, meaning Ava, to love Hashem, that your only desire is to be close to Hashem. Then you have Yira, which means you're afraid, like you're afraid to put your head, throw yourself into the fire. You're afraid to do a sin because that's killing you. And then you have the level of Tiferes, Rachamim, which the person awakens mercy on himself, meaning he has pity on the neshama that fell from such a high place of Elokus all the way down into the slow physical body. So when a person meditates into Ava, Yira, and Rachmim, so that's the way they transform the world into the level of Kedusha. They transform Midbar Ha'amin. And he says, Ki Yaakov Chaval Nachlose, because Yaakov is the rope of Hashem's inheritance. Yisrael, Olu B'machshava, the Yidden come not only from Dibur. All creations in the world came from Dibur, except Neshamas alu b'machshava, neshamas come from dibur, from machshava. Yod l'slabish b'guf v'nefesh ha'chiyunis, and it comes into the physical body. Lidig v'lachshik v'chol yoni ha'guf parnasa v'taivas, to deal with all physical, parnasa, families, problems, etc. Uknira b'chush, like we say like this. Shadam yashin ein le'shum taida. Not talking until you fall asleep. Once you fall asleep, you have no problems. When you're sleeping, everything's good. It says, Shadam yashin ein le'shum taida. Uveseder mishinasi, it said, can you wake up? All your problems come back. You say kol adaigas. And he says that's the level of Rachel lifnei Geizazel. Rachel before the shearing, meaning Shebchin es haneshama enim slabish beguf. The neshama itself, taka yichai yichida, doesn't come into the body. Ki ma'aris mu'atis bechinas sidus. Only the level of sidus could shaydei shemi'ida beguf. Through this, that it shines into the body, aydei zaguf cheshiv v'mamik binyanim gashmi. It starts meditating into physical things, and that's the level of Geizazel. And therefore, the person meditates like this. My neshama comes from such a high place. It comes into such a low place, where all it worries about is gashmistic problems, concerns, challenges, whatever. He says, and therefore it's taka big pity on my neshama. Now what does Rachmanis do? Like we learned many times. The pasuk says Yaakov asher podas Avraham. Yaakov who redeemed Avraham. Yaakov never redeemed Avraham Avinu. Yaakov, Avraham Avinu redeemed Lot, he redeemed Sarah, whatever. Yaakov never redeemed Avraham. What do you mean Yaakov asher podas Avraham? So this explains. I'll explains in Tanya that Yaakov is the attribute of Rachmanis. Avram is the attribute of Ava. Now sometimes when the Ava of the Neshama comes into the body, it gets buried. The Avos Hashem gets buried. It's in jail. It's captured. So what do? How do you redeem that level of Ava that's in jail? You have to awaken the love. What awakens love? Rachmanis. Like we learned many times, a person has Rachmanis on somebody, it actually stimulates a love to the person. Therefore, we will mention many times, social workers end up a lot of times marrying or falling in love with their clients. Why? Because they have Rachmanis on them, and that awakens the level of love. So what's the avodah of Rachmanis on the neshama? You meditate into the greatness of Hashem with Ava. You meditate into the greatness of Hashem, Yirah, that you don't want to rebel against Hashem. But what happens? It doesn't work. It still doesn't work. You didn't turn on the Ava yet. So then the next step is, like he says, like we say in davening, we say, Hashem, Rachamecha harabim, your godly Rachmanis, the infinite level of Rachmanis, Ki ein lanu hasagot tfisa in the level of a lukus that we can't understand at all. Kilas machshava tfisa bei lachein anu masigin geid rachmanis. But therefore we can't even understand Hashem's rachmanis. In other words, what we think we have pity, that's a limited pity. That's a limited rachmanis. Hashem's rachmanis is infinite rachmanis, and therefore we say to Hashem right before Shema. Let's say, like we learned. First you do Sukkah de Zimra, then you do about the Malachim, and if that doesn't work, what do we say right before Shema to come to the Yohafta? Your level of, not our limited level of mercy, Hashem, and your infinite level of mercy, have an Achmanis on us. What?
So first we try to arouse our Ahavas Hashem.
That's Sukkah de Zimra. No, that's the end result.
No, that's what we try first. That's what you said.
Now it's first.
If it doesn't work.
No. First you try to stimulate Avam Sukkah de Zimra. Meditating in how great Hashem is. That even the Nefesh Shabamis can understand it. Then you go To the second level, you tell the Nefesh Habamis, Malachim Eskrin Kodesh Baruch, meaning the source of Nefesh Habamis comes from the junk of the Ifanim. So you tell the Nefesh Habamis, your own source is screaming Kodesh and Baruch. And if that doesn't help, then you try the Rachmanis tactic.
Would you see that in davening?
Right before Shema, you see Avinu Rachman.
But that's Hashem's Rachmanis.
Yeah.
When we said, first I have to arouse my own Rachmanis.
No, not my own Rachmanis. First we have to awaken our Avis Hashem and Yiras Hashem.
Okay, didn't
If that doesn't help, then we say to Hashem, my Rachmanis is not going to work anyway.
Which one is our Rachmanis again?
Our Rachmanis is no Aveda, it doesn't work.
Oh, it doesn't work.
No. That's the level, but we're telling Hashem we are so low that we need your Rachmanis to get us out. Our Rachmanis is not going to do it.
So how's Hashem's Rachmanis going to arouse my eye?
Because Hashem Hashem's Rachmanis is so infinite, it can even arise and wake up the Ava the Ava, the Neshama, which is completely engulfed and enslaved and captured by the Nefesh Habamis.
Seems like it's not Aveda. It's much more attainable for me to arouse my own Rachmanis, to arouse my Ava.
No.
And to rely on Hashem.
That's not true. It's very easy. Oh my goodness. Even our Rachmanis, you first have to realize where the Neshama comes from and how low it fell. With all due respect to everybody, including myself, to the ultimate degree, we don't fathom and we don't even think about how great the neshama is, and we definitely don't realize how low we are.
So that Avodah doesn't work. Trying to arouse my Rachmanis.
To start at the beginning, no, it's not going to work, because without meditating into the greatness of Hashem, you don't have any conception where the neshama comes from.
Okay, so that doesn't
and then you definitely don't know how low we are.
So then we go to Hashem and say, okay, Rabbi.
After we try our Ava and our Yira and the source, then it still doesn't work. We say, God, listen, I tried my best.
So then Hashem does a miracle?
Hashem does a miracle. He awakens us with His infinite Rachmanis. Sometimes we're a vessel, but it doesn't work anyway. Sometimes we're a vessel for it. Sometimes, and usually we're not.
So moments before Shema, where we need Ahavas Hashem in order to say Shema, we ask Hashem to turn it on, and that's the best.
And we're still not turned on. You know why? I'll tell you why it doesn't turn on. Because we don't mean it. We don't mean it.
But really, when we say that, we mean that our Rachmanis should arouse our
No, that's what we're saying. We don't say I should have Rachmanis on myself. You know why we don't have Rachmanis on ourselves? Let me tell you a little thing later. If we would have Rachmanis on ourselves, we wouldn't be acting the way we act. We would be infinitely better. Because if we realize, and therefore there's a halacha in the Matos says in Shulchan Aruch, which explains why there's a chiyuv to learn chassidus before davening. The Rama writes in Shulchan Aruch that there's an obligation before davening for a person to meditate, begadlus hakel v'shiflus ha'adam. It's a halachic obligation. You have to meditate, questions for how long, into the greatness of Hashem and lowness of man. Not we think how great Hashem is, because if we realize how great Hashem is, we wouldn't have our own desires that contradict what Hashem wants us to do. And we don't feel how low we are. We think we're great. Bottom line. So of course the Rahman is not going to work. How can the Rahman work if you don't mean it?
But we are great. We're here, learning.
We're great. That's for somebody else to think about you. Not to think about yourself that way.